you're a foreign ambassador visiting Palace of Versailles at the height of French royal power. You've crossed Europe for this moment. Before you even step inside, France is already sending a message. This is no longer simply a royal residence. This is the center of the world Louis XIV is trying to build. A palace meant to convince Europe that all power, culture, wealth, beauty, science, and political authority radiate outward from one man, the King of France. And everything you're about to experience has been choreographed to affect you psychologically. Versailles is theater, but it's theater with a political purpose. One of the first grand spaces you encounter is the Hercules room. The ceiling rises dramatically overhead with a massive painting showing Hercules ascending to Olympus. The monarchy constantly connected itself to gods, heroes, and divine power. As ambassador, you're supposed to walk into this room and instantly feel small. The room itself becomes a warning. If France can create something this grand, imagine the scale of its real political power. And now you enter the royal chapel. This chapel became the final major building project of Louis XIV and was completed in 1710. Daily mass took place here, but even religion followed hierarchy. The king attended from an elevated royal tribune above everyone else, while courtiers remained below. Even in charge, the monarch stood physically higher than his court. As ambassador, the message becomes obvious. The king's authority supposedly comes from God himself. This chapel also witnessed the wedding of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette in 1770. Imagine Marie Antoinette entering this exact space at 14 years old, long before the revolution would destroy the world around her. Then you continue deeper into the king's state apartments. These rooms weren't designed for ordinary living, they were built for spectacle. Each salon is dedicated to a Roman god: Venus, Mars, Mercury, Apollo. Louis XIV deliberately associated himself with Apollo, the sun god, which is why he became known as the Sun King. This room hosted lavish receptions and evening gatherings. Silver furniture and precious objects once filled the room during candlelit events. Then you enter the abundance room, and even the name feels intentional. Abundance, wealth, luxury. This room originally served as the entrance to Louis XIV's cabinet of curiosities, where the king displayed rare medals, silver objects, precious stones, and treasures collected from across Europe. The room also hosted royal evening receptions where nobles gathered for music, games, and conversation before continuing through the state apartments. As you enter the Mars room, the atmosphere immediately feels more formal and controlled. In Louis XIV's time, this room marked the beginning of the king's state apartments and originally served as a guard room. As ambassador, you would likely first notice the guards, nobles in military dress, and the sense of order inside the room. This room feels darker, richer, and far more theatrical. This was Louis XIV's state bedchamber before the king later moved his official bedroom to the center of the palace. One of the most astonishing details: many furnishings were originally made of solid silver. Most were later melted down to help finance Louis XIV wars, which makes the room feel even more unreal today. And finally, the palace reveals its masterpiece, the Hall of Mirrors. 73 meters long, 357 mirrors, 17 massive windows overlooking the gardens. You immediately understand why ambassadors were received here. The hall is designed to destabilize perception itself. You no longer know where architecture ends and reflection begins. The mirrors were also political symbols. Venice had dominated luxury mirror production, but Louis XIV wanted France to surpass Italian craftsmanship. The gallery essentially tells foreign visitors: France is victorious, France is wealthy, France is cultured, France is eternal. Ambassadors competed for position here during ceremonies because visibility near the king signaled prestige. By the time you leave the Hall of Mirrors, Louis XIV has already achieved what he wanted. You may not admire him, you may even fear him, but you will never forget him. After the Hall of Mirrors, you enter the Salon of Peace, and after the movement and brightness of the gallery, the room immediately feels calmer. Large windows overlook the gardens of Versailles, filling the salon with natural light and opening directly toward the fountains and geometric pathways outside. The room was connected to the Queen's apartments and decorated around themes of peace, abundance and stability. This is one of the most emotional rooms in Versailles. Marie Antoinette spent years here as Queen of France. Royal births actually happened publicly in this room because the royal family needed witnesses to confirm legitimate heirs. Imagine dozens of people crowding into the chamber during childbirth. But the room is most famous for what happened during October 1789. In the middle of the night, revolutionaries broke into the palace and rushed toward the Queen's apartment. Marie Antoinette escaped through a hidden door beside her bed that led into the King's apartment, moments before the crowd entered. That hidden door still exists today, and suddenly Versailles stopped feeling distant and historical. It feels real. You can imagine the panic, guards shouting, people running through candlelit corridors, the Queen fleeing through secret passages while the monarchy collapsed around her. It's one of those moments where history suddenly feels very human. What most visitors don't realize is that directly behind the Hall of Mirrors existed the king's private world, hidden from the ceremonial palace, seen by ambassadors and courtiers. Louis XV expanded these apartments during the 18th century because he increasingly preferred private life away from the exhausting rituals of court ceremony. Behind the mirrored gallery were private dining rooms where Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette held smaller suppers attended only by selected guests instead of the enormous public meals associated with Versailles. There were also hidden cabinets used for political meetings, reading, administration and daily work, revealing that behind the spectacle, Versailles also functioned as the center of government. The king's private rooms overlooked the marble courtyard below, where courtiers gathered waiting for signs of royal movement from the windows above, which makes this hidden side of Versailles feel even more fascinating. Behind the Hall of Mirrors existed another palace connected not only to ceremony, but to private royal life, politics, science and music. One of the most overlooked parts of Versailles is the gallery of coaches inside the royal stables. Most visitors focus entirely on the palace itself and miss this area completely, even though some of the most extraordinary royal vehicles in French history are kept here. Inside are massive ceremonial carriages covered in gold carving, painted panels, velvet and royal emblems designed for coronations, royal weddings, state ceremonies and public processions. One of the most famous is the coronation carriage of Napoleon I, created for his imperial ceremonies after he crowned himself emperor in 1804. And standing nearby is something even more striking, the enormous funeral carriage used during the state funeral of Louis XVIII. Black, heavy, covered in gilded sculpture and drapery, it feels completely different from the glittering ceremonial coaches surrounding it. And at night, Versailles becomes even more spectacular. Louis XIV used these nighttime events to impress foreign ambassadors and visiting courts, transforming entertainment into a display of royal prestige. Versailles became the last great palace of absolute French monarchy, and at the same time one of the most admired and most hated palaces in Europe. Admired for its beauty and scale, hated for the excess and royal spectacle it came to represent. And walking through Versailles today, you somehow understand both.